Hi everyone, welcome to today's session on pitched roof trusses. Today we'll be going through creating a pitched truss, positioning within a roof, cutting members, and updating with design changes. So we'll be taking a look at this building here today. So just a brick veneer with a pitched roof. Alrighty, so we'll jump into our floor plan. We can see our buildings here. So I've already got a section set up. So we'll just jump over to there. Alrighty. So before we model trusses, we want to be setting up a few reference planes to essentially host the truss to so the base height of the truss and the width of the truss. So we'll start by modeling in a reference plane for the base of the truss. So I'm just going to draw a reference plane and we're going to sit it at the top of the stud wall. I'm going to draw one all the way across the building. Okay, and we want to make sure that we're naming these reference planes. So this one we're going to call truss underscore base height. And we want to pin this one. Okay, so we want to try and make sure that this one doesn't get deleted. If we place the trusses and this reference plane does get deleted, it won't remove the truss at all. So it will stay in the same spot. It'll just lose its association. It's just better to try and keep him here though. Okay, the next reference plane we're going to draw is for the width of the truss. So again, we'll just draw another reference plane. Now this one needs to be located where the base of the truss, so this reference plane we just drew, hits the base of the roof. So in this instance, we've got the roof batten layer, we've got the roof sheeting layer on top. So it's going to hit the roof batten layer. We're just going to draw a vertical reference plane. And we'll name this one truss underscore wet. So this side, the left side's the west side. So let's call this west width. Don't worry about pinning this one. This one is likely to move around a little bit in the next step. So I'm just going to copy this one across and paste it in the same location on the other side. And we'll name this one east width. Cool. So we've got the base and the width reference plane set up, so we can jump back to our floor plan and we can model the truss. So we're going to jump over to the structure tab, select truss, and just for this training session, we're not going to be going through all the parameters of trusses. We did run through that in another class in configuring trusses. So if you haven't seen that, I would recommend watching that one first. So the parameter we do want to change is the placement plane. So we're going to pick the reference plane we just drew, which is the truss base height. So we can see now our work plane has updated to that reference plane, and our reference level is picking up at the level of the level that we're in. So if this is a different level, just it is probably recommended just to adjust it to change it to the level that you're in, the plan that you're in. And just one other thing to note, jump into the type parameters, just popped up on another screen, and make sure you enter your structural framing families before you model the truss. So I've already done that here. Okay, let's place the truss. So I'm just going to model it just roughly outside of this brick veneer. Doesn't have to be perfect here. We're going to adjust the width. So we'll place it just outside of the building. And that warning that just popped up, it's just telling you that the element that you modeled is above the cut plane. Well, it's out of the view, so it's above the cut plane, which is why it's popped up. So we can just ignore that for now. Okay, let's jump back to the section. And we're gonna go through and modify the framing families to start with. So I'm gonna do a swipe across everything. It's just easier to select all the truss elements. And we're gonna use the filter tool. And I'm just gonna hit check none, and we're only gonna select the truss families. So structural trusses and the structural framing families. Click OK. And let's isolate that. So I'm going to select the little sunglasses and click isolate element. Now, before I click off, I'm just going to unpin everything just because I want to adjust all of these or modify all of these framing families. So again, we also did go through this in configuring trusses as well in more detail that we're going to do today. So if you haven't watched it, yeah, definitely go give that a watch. So we'll start by adjusting the top chords. So I'm going to tab onto the two top chords. I'm going to adjust the Z justification to be top. And then I'm going to change the Z justification for the bottom chord to be bottom. Now I'll go through and extend all of these framing families. So remember, when you're going through and adjusting these, you want to be selecting the triangular grips and not the circular grips. And I'm just grabbing them and pulling them to about the middle of the top or the bottom chord. Doesn't have to be perfect, just about that location. So then we can cope them. With the edges of the top chords, just place it somewhere sort of where you want them. We'll be fixing them up in the next step. Okay, we'll go through and cope all of these framing families. So we're going to go to the Modify tab, and we're going to select Cope. And I want to tick multiple cut for this one. Just it's a little bit quicker to cope all of them. I'm going to start with the bottom chord. I'm going to select the bottom chord, then I'm going to click the top chord. That will cope that one. And you'll notice that the top chord is still highlighted. So I can go through now and select all the relevant framing members. And then once you've done one panel or one member, press Escape, select Cope again, and then do it again. And then we'll do the bottom chord. Okay, now we just want to adjust the coping distance to be 0. So if we just select all of those ones, I'm not selecting the top chords because they haven't been coped. So I'm going to click Filter and untick Trusses and then change the coping distance to be 0. Cool. Now we'll reset the temporary hide. We'll bring everything back. So let's start looking at changing the width and height parameters. So we'll start with the width parameter. Now, unfortunately, if with trusses, when you're adjusting the width, when you're using this grip, you can't grab it and it doesn't snap to things. It does actually snap to things if you're in plan. But in this instance, in section, it doesn't actually snap to, say, reference planes or roofs or anything. So what I've found to work well is if you go into the Modify tab and use the Trim and Extend tool, if you select the reference plane first and then hover over, it's got to be where the actual truss itself, not the framing members, is. If you select that framing member, oh, sorry, not the framing member, the truss itself, it will extend to that point. So I'll do that again, reference plane, and select the edge. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to select. So just make sure you're hovering over the edge of the truss. Okay, it's starting to look pretty good. Now we've got to look at adjusting the height. So there are two methods of changing the heights of trusses. So the first one is if I select this truss, there's a parameter truss height, so I can manually change that. There's also another tool called attach top/bottom. You've probably noticed that tool when you select a wall. So this also works with trusses. So I'll run through both methods. The first one I'll go through is the manual entering of the height. So what I like to do here is I like to draw a reference plane to where the height of the truss should be. So in this instance, the underside of the roof batten layer. I'm just going to draw a reference plane over there. You can name this one if you'd like. This can be truss underscore height. And then I'm going to draw a dimension from the base of the truss, so the reference plane we drew, to the top of the truss, and just pull it out there. And then if I select, I don't want to go by just this number, just because it doesn't give me my decimals here. So if I select the reference plane, you'll notice that the dimension number goes blue. I can select that, copy it, and then select the truss and adjust the height and just paste it in there. And that will give me the height. Now I'll just run through adjusting the roof height with the manual method first, then we'll wind back to attaching the truss to the roof. So as we can see here, the top chord should be cutting through the top plate or the top of the stud wall. So I like to just draw a line here. So I'm just going to draw a detail line. And depending on where you want the top chord to cut through is where you're going to draw the line. So for me, for this class, you can be a little bit more calculated with this this point, but I'm just going to draw it, say around that area. And I've drawn the line to the underside of the top chord. Then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab the roof and I'm going to move it that distance of the line. This will put the roof in the correct location, and then you just need to adjust the truss to suit where the roof is. So to adjust the truss, let's start with the width. So we're going to move these reference planes into position. So reference plane just needs to move to where the base of the truss meets the underside of the roof batten layer. And we'll do it for both sides. And then we're just going to use the trim and extend tool. Now, when you're using this, as I was mentioning before, it can be a little bit difficult to find the line. Just make sure you don't, you want to be clicking the side that you want to retain. So if I hover over the other side and click it, it's not going to create cut the truss properly. So I'm just going to click cancel. We want to be clicking on the side we want to keep. So I'm going to click that. That pulls it in. And that will pull it in there. And we can get rid of that detail line now. And then the height, we just need to move the reference plane down to where it needs to be, and then copy and paste the truss height, and that will adjust. So modifying, if if there was a design change, let's say the space was a little bit wider, all you'd need to do is just adjust. Once the roof is adjusted, you just need to adjust these reference planes and snap the truss to the reference planes, just like we just did. Okay, the other method of adjusting the height of the truss. So if I just change this back to the default number, about 2400. If I select the truss and click attach top/bottom, and then select the roof, that works pretty well. If I grab the roof, and you'll notice I have split this roof into two, just because, just to make this detail look a little bit more accurate. Otherwise, my roof batten layer would be overlapping the gutter and the fascia. But if I wanted to move, let's just say the roof up for any reason, let's say we move it up by a couple of 100 mil, the truss moves with it. So that works pretty well. All you'd have to do, again, just move the reference planes out, trim and extend, and that will move with it. One thing to look out for if you do use this method is if you lower the roof, let's say we'll go down 300, so it's going to drop a little bit further. You'll notice this error will pop up. It says Revit cannot attach the chosen roof/slab. So essentially, the truss can't attach itself to the roof. Now this is popping up because, I might just move this down a little bit more. The edge or the end point of the truss is now higher than the roof, and Revit can't work that out. So it just spits out saying, no, you can't, I can't attach to the roof, and it will give you an error and you'll have to detach it. So it's just because at this point here, the roof is actually lower than the truss. So if I was to grab this and move it back up a little bit, let's say we move this truss in. And then we attach to the roof, that'll work. Just give me a warning because I haven't aligned these up, and this won't be straight. But that works essentially. So you just have to watch out if you do use this method. If you're dropping the roof, then if it does drop lower than the truss ends, it's going to give you an error. Okay, let me just undo back to where I was before. Alrighty. Just going to move these soffits down. So let's look at extending the top chords now. So we'll just tab onto the top chord. Again, we're using the arrow grips, not the circular grips, and we're just going to extend that out. I'm going to run through cutting the truss at the end against the fascia board. If you've got a exposed trusses and you don't need to cut it, you can skip the cutting step and you can just leave this wherever you need it to go. But for this example, I'm going to extend it through. And I might just move this soffit back up. Okay, and before I cut the ends, what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to copy the truss through the building. The reason being, if I cut it now and I copy the truss, the cut isn't going to, it doesn't hold the cut. So we'll do that at the end. So I'm just jumping into 3D. I find it a bit easier to do this in 3D. I'm just going to temporarily hide the roofs. And let's move this a bit closer. Okay, I'm going to use the copy tool, and we're just going to place this a few times here. Let's say every 2000 mil. I'm just going to use multiple here. And one more time. Okay, now I'm just going to shift my section just back. So it's in front of the building, just so I can capture all of the trusses and then just change the depth of the section so it's covering the whole building. And I might show you this in 3D as well, just so you can see it cutting live. We draw a reference plane on the inside face of this fascia board, and we'll call this truss underscore width, west fascia. And we do want to pin this one. And this one's important because if you cut the member and then the reference plane gets deleted, it does uncut. So we want to make sure we're pinning this one and keeping it there. Okay, let's do this side first. So we'll go through the cut tool, modify and select cut. And then make sure multiple cut is selected. And we'll start with the first member. So I'm going to select top chord. I'm going to select the reference plane and it will slice it. You can see that's now sliced. You probably can't see that the reference plane is actually still blue. So if I hover over the next top chord and click it, it's just going to keep on slicing those members. So I just kept clicking that. I'll do it again on the other side. East fascia. And we'll pin that. And then just using the cut tool again, select that member. Select the reference plane, and then I'm just going to keep on clicking. So I'm just clicking a heap of times here now. And if you just sort of spam it, it'll cut through them very quickly. And then that's pretty much what it looks like. And just another point with any design changes, something like this, I would recommend that you delete the back trusses, adjust the one, and then just copy them again. Just because you don't want to have to go through and adjust all the the width, the height, and all that sort of stuff for each one. So copy and pasting will be your best friend there.